Welcome to the Pistol Pete podcast, where we shoot over NBA news and drama as fast as a bullet. I am Pistol Pete, as you probably would have guessed. Quick shout out to Game On for allowing this podcast to exist. I would not do this if they didn't approach me wanting a podcast about NBA news and nonsense. So be sure to go ahead and subscribe, follow, and throw pineapples full of money at them because they're awesome guys. And without this, none of this would be possible. So again, thank you to Game On. Oh, and just wanted a quick disclaimer. Forgive the video quality right now. I do have a lighting kit that's supposed to arrive in just a few hours. So don't worry. These weird shadows will be fixed. Thank you. Also, I'm trying to figure out how to set up the DSLR. Anyways, technology. Let's get on into it. There's been an uptick in coronavirus cases around the U.S. Previously, in my last podcast, we talked about the NBA season reopening or restarting, actually, more specifically. But we will see if that has any effect on it. More on that later. Then I'm going to talk about the Zion trailer from NBA 2K21. Is he possibly the new cover? We don't know. Let's look at the Nets roster too. We're going to look at the Nets roster and really just dissect what I think about how these guys are doing as a team and what their potential looks like. And then what I ultimately think they're going to be, potential aside. We're also going to talk about, guess what? The NBA superstars, some of them led by Kyrie Irving, might not actually show up to this weird tournament, new season restarting thing of sorts. More on that in a bit. And finally, ending off with Nikola Jokic, if I can say his name correctly. He lost weight. What? Go Nikola Jokic, the Joker. Joking off a few pounds. He's looking much better. I'll show you a picture of that in a second too. Let's get on into it. At time of recording, there has been a massive spread of infections for coronavirus cases in 21 plus states, which means that, holy crap, we could have this again. So the very thing that caused pretty much the halt on the world is possibly coming back. So, not trying to scare anyone, but that is the facts that coronavirus cases have increased. And as for the sports podcast, obviously that affects the NBA and every other sports that we do at Game On, just in general. Again, at the time of recording, the 7-day average for some of these states actually increased. Alabama had a 92% increase in the 7-day average. And that was, again, a week ago, I believe. Oregon up to 88%. 88%. And then South Carolina 60.3%. So pretty huge numbers from a couple of states. More things have happened since then, especially around the rest of the world. So just know that ahead of time. And even still, Britain says, screw the numbers. We're going to reduce the 6-foot rule anyways. So, of course, Britain trying to be the trailblazer that they are. They're going to reduce it. So they're not going to follow the 6-foot rule. So, again, just cases are shooting up, and we'll have to see if that is effective. Moving on to sportsy stuff. Zion appeared in a particularly sweaty trailer for NBA 2K. I don't know why they do this. Every year, they always have a trailer showcasing a star, up-and-coming rookie, whatever, but they always show them really profusely sweating, and it's kind of disturbing. So, but hey, you do you show the technology. I guess the only way you can do that is to show people's precipitation fall off their bodies. I guess it's kind of gross, but hey. Zion Williamson, if you do not know, if you've not been, in the news at all about who this kid is, he's a fantastic athlete. He plays for the Pelicans, and he's the hottest thing right now, especially when you put him alongside some of the other rookies like Ja Morant and Trae Young. But again, and Luka as well. Obviously, can't forget Luka. Love Luka. Anyways, so Zion Williamson appeared in the very first trailer for 2K21, which I thought that was interesting. Out of all the guys you could have debuted, you debuted the guy that's had 16 games played in the regular season. Excuse me, I think it's 19 actually. Wow, big difference, right? And then he was hurt, and then he had to leave and rest up, because obviously when you spend a number 1 draft pick, you want to actually protect that franchise future of that draft pick. So again, they sat him because he had some injury issues. He'll probably be back next season just fine. He may even be back for the season restart, actually, but catch one of my former podcasts to hear what I said about the Rookie of the Year numbers and how that could influence things, having a canceled season or restarted, etc., etc. But alas, Zion, what would that mean for 2K to put him on the cover? Would you believe it that he would be the youngest ever 2K cover athlete? The other youngest 2K cover athletes were Chris Paul and Anthony Davis. Chris Paul debuting at NBA 2K8, which looking back on it now that we're at 21, that's a really long time. So, 2K8, throw it back, why don't you? And then Anthony Davis was at 2K16, a lot closer of a number. And they both were 22. All right. Zion is younger than that. So does that tell you the phenomenal sensation that this kid has become in the popular scope? He's just become so big that younger than 22, he could be on the cover. Again, we'll see if that happens, but history has proven that it's not impossible. And 2K, specifically as a company, they do love to ride the coattails of the popular kid. It usually happens that way. Or they like to ride the coattails of like LeBron. But either way, whoever's the most popular, whoever's making the most waves, that's usually what 2K does. And it's totally a revenue thing, totally a financial thing. I understand it. But it's also kind of like, well, he's only played 16 games. So 19 games, whatever. Sue me. Jeez. Or don't, please. No money. No. And also, what about some of the other candidates? I mean, come on. One guy who's never been on the cover? Kawhi Leonard. What? Why has Kawhi Leonard not been shown? Especially since the fact that he just won a title. No love for Kawhi Leonard? This dude's a boss, man. He's the best all-around player in the league, defensively, offensively. He can do it all from all parts of the court. I mean, I don't get it. He took a Raptors team that struggled for years. They traded DeRozan off and got Kawhi, and all of a sudden, guess what? They win a title. He's like, I already did it. I did it, so I'm out now. Bye. And so it's just kind of incredible that, if Kawhi doesn't get on this cover, just no love for the robot. No love for the android whatsoever. Very, very, very sad. The Nets of House Brooklyn for a second. If you haven't watched the Game of Thrones, or sorry, not Game of Thrones, wrong plug, Game of Zones, then you definitely need to check it out. Game of Zones, fantastic. That's my shameless plug. I promise they didn't pay for advertising. I just love that freaking show. So go watch it. It's fantastic. It just ended. Quick intro to this team. What a weird, wasted, dysfunctional super team that if they ever got to play, then they could be conceivably awesome. And just so you can understand my point of view on that, let me go ahead and go through the roster. Let me tell you some things just some very basic stats about what these guys are capable of and what they could do if everything was working perfectly. Let's start from the top. Let's talk about the man, the Durantula. KD had a career average of 27 points per game. Crazy. 7 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. Again, great shooting percentage. He can shoot from anywhere on the court. You really have to guard him, kind of like you do with Steph Curry. Except he's got longer arms. He's not as fast. He can shoot anywhere. He can shoot against any defense. He can rebound. He can play defense when he wants to. With that 6'11" frame, super long arms. He's very much like Giannis. It's just not as big, so to say. But yeah, he's a beast, freak of nature. And I guess you could say he leads this team, but KD's not really a leader to me. Even when he was with Russell Westbrook, I never really saw KD as the leader. I saw KD as the best player on that team. KD being the leader, no, but is he the most important? Probably. More on him in just a second. But Kyrie Irving, very interesting player. He, last season, through I think it was like 20 games, he actually averaged 27 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, and 6.4 assists a game. So almost 6.5 assists per game in 20 games is stupid. That's ridiculous. Those are MVP numbers across the board. Had he been, good, and obviously, had he been healthy / COVID not, kiboshing the whole season. Huge personality flaws in my opinion. He's also a flat earth believer, so, you're gonna have to dock some points off personality for that too. But again, we'll get there. So DeAndre Jordan, 8 points per game, 10 rebounds per game. That's what you expect out of DeAndre Jordan. I don't have the defensive stats with me, but I know his defense is awesome. That's why you have him. I mean, it's pretty simple. Spencer Dinwiddie, 20 points per game, 6.8 assists per game. He played more games than Kyrie, especially when Kyrie was hurt, and he's an effective scorer. He's gotten into a groove of scoring, and he certainly is a good point guard who could pass. He's got a bigger frame, a little bit taller, and able to see the court pretty good. So again, he's a good player. More on that in a second, how that relates to the rest of the team. But Jarrett Allen, 10 points per game, 9.5 rebounds per game, so full season might average a double-double. Again, that's what you want him for, as well as his defense is good as well. And Joe Harris, he's 13 points per game. He's the shooter. He's the JJ Redick. Maybe he's a little bit more mobile, and I don't know about shooting better, but he's kind of like a younger JJ Redick. So he's a good player. He's a good shooter. He can play some defense. He's not like an offensive, an all defensive stud or anything, but he can play good defense. And then you have guys like Chris LeVert, 17 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. Again, fantastic numbers considering what his role would be on the team. Now, we move on to Wilson Chandler, a good role player, good defensive role player. He's a little bit up in age, but he could still hoop a little bit there. 6 points per game and 4 rebounds per game. Taurean Prince, 12 points per game, 6 rebounds per game. Again, that is a good role player that can do kind of a little bit of everything, athletic wing kind of player. He's more along the lines of what the Hawks were trying to do with just not being overtly huge, but just being very quick and athletic. The Hawks, when they gave him up, were trying to really be kind of like the Golden State Warriors, just not as effective because they didn't have the crazy shooters that they do. But they were athletic, they were lean, they were young, and so Taurean Prince is really welcome on any team. He's just that caliber of athlete. And you can put athletes anywhere on the court, and they'll do stuff for you as long as you have good scorers around them. So, and then Garrett Temple, 10 points per game. So again, I'm looking at this list, and that's not everybody, but those are probably the main, probably top, what is that, 5, 10? Probably top 10, the first 10 on the order. Mixing in a couple guys for injuries. That's pretty good numbers right there. Everybody's pretty even. The only ones who are not even are quite obviously Kyrie and KD, and even Spencer Dinwiddie, slightly upper echelon, of those numbers. On paper, this team looks fantastic, and that's where it gets tricky because numbers aren't everything. We've seen this in the past. We've seen where a super team seems to exist, and then they just don't click. They just don't work. And something blows up, and we're all left wondering why. Why didn't it do anything? And, I could look at one of my favorite teams ever was the Clippers, actually, when Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan were on the same team. I thought that team was amazing. He had a slightly younger Chris Paul than he is now, at least. He's old and just mean and cranky. You had a younger Chris Paul who's still a genius even in his older age. You had a fresh Blake Griffin. You had a younger DeAndre. You had 3 amazing players, and you had guys around them too, like Redick, and you had other guys that could shoot and play defense. And what'd they do? They didn't do nothing. I'm gonna be honest, they didn't do nothing. And again, this is a team that I respect and I really liked to watch, but they didn't do anything. And that was really sad because they had the pieces. They really did have the pieces. Teams like that, I know it doesn't completely compare because whereas Chris Paul and Kyrie kind of match up in terms of their superstar level, obviously no one matches up to KD on that Clippers team. Still, I think it was a great team and it just didn't work. And so when you look at this Nets team on paper, you think, okay, well, this is definitely going to work. This could definitely be something fantastic. Well, my only contention to that is, Kyrie and KD were largely absent from this team. This team did quite well before, COVID kiboshed the whole season. They were doing quite well with just who they had, the players that I mentioned. They didn't have Kyrie or KD for most of that, especially KD. They didn't have him for any of that because he was still hurt. Now, that being said, the argument can be made 2 ways. One way is the obvious way, which is Kyrie and KD are such crazy offensive talents that as soon as they come in the game, Nets are going to win every single game. They're just going to be ridiculous. You can't stop KD. You really can't. And even Kyrie, you can't stop him. How are you going to stop him? He's so shifty. He dribbles so well. He's just really a crazy offensive threat that can shoot, drive, draw contact, and just kind of lead your team with his shot selection as much as he likes to shoot. He's like a more accurate Russell Westbrook and less violent. So again, Kyrie, fantastic player. He's often considered one of the best handlers of all time by legends. Legends have said, multiple NBA players have said that Kyrie Irving has the best handles of all time. And obviously, I throw my flag towards, guys like Allen Iverson and even Steph Curry are fantastic dribbler. He's a fantastic dribbler. Kyrie Irving has that shiftiness and that awareness that you just can't, you really can't replicate. And he's got kind of that street ball flair that AI had with the refined dribbling that some of these newer school guys have. Again, fantastic players. You can make that argument that they're going to come into the season and automatically kill everybody. However, what if they don't? What if they come into the season and mess up what little chemistry this team has with its mosh of random players from different teams? What if some of these guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, who's scoring 20 points per game before, the COVID break, what if he goes down to 10 or 5 because Kyrie Irving is now running point and taking up all the shots? What if you take away the players that have been helping to distribute the load and you put all the load on 2 players? And worse yet, what if one of those 2 very injury-prone superstars, Kyrie and KD both, KD suffering obviously a massive injury, the likes of which that have ended most careers, or at least diminished most careers of the Hall of Famers. That's Achilles is no joke. That's the thing that's the injury that made Kobe slow down. And Kobe we consider a, top 10 player of all time, definitely. And I'm only just saying that conservatively. Many people say he's a top 5. You talk about that, and that's just a really hard injury to come back from. So we'll see if he can do that. And with his frame and everything, it's not going to make it any easier. So we'll see if he can do that. And if he can, then that's fantastic. I hope he doesn't get hurt again. Obviously, I don't want any player to get hurt, but you just never know with those kind of crazy injuries. Then you can look at Kyrie. And Kyrie has been injured a lot. He's had very, very, very short stints with the Celtics, off and on due to injury. He had injury issues with the Cavs. He's had injury issues immediately since when he got into Brooklyn with the Nets. So the question for Kyrie is going to be, can this guy stay healthy? Can he do it? Is it possible? And if it is, are there any other potential indicators that he's going to be a detriment to this team? And I think that there are. I think that you look at the history of him just being on teams that have done worse with him on those teams than when he's not been on those teams. You look at the Celtics, who they really, numbers that I've seen at least, and I don't have them in front of me, show that the Celtics have done significantly better in some cases when Kyrie was out of there, when he was hurt. I don't wish that on anybody, but you look at some cases with the Cavs. And I know that some people like to think that Kyrie bailed out LeBron on a few shots, and he probably did, and I think he did, but his personality is very interesting, and I'm not sure that he's completely decisive on whether he wants to be a leader or not. Because when he went to the Celtics, he even said in an interview, he said, yeah, I respect LeBron a lot more because I didn't realize how much it took to be a leader, basically, how much people depended on you and how much pressure you were put under. And that's what LeBron had when he was, in Cleveland. He had so much pressure to be the leader of this team, especially with a young Kyrie on his team. And Kyrie had been the team before LeBron got there again. You look at things like that, and then you say to yourself, well, KD is like the most passive leader I know. That's a superstar. I think even Kawhi is probably a bit better leader than KD. Because Kawhi, I feel like, even though he's quiet on camera, he's quiet during the games, he's a role model you want to follow. He doesn't create any drama. He doesn't create any stirs in the league. He just goes out there. He shows you what's up. He handles his business, and he whoops your butt and wins a championship. That's what Kawhi is made of, and we don't know how much behind the scenes stuff he does also. KD seems really encouraging. I'm not trying to knock his personality for anything like that, but when he's been tested, he's deferred. He's deferred the ball. He's deferred the leadership potential. When he was on the Warriors, no one on this earth can tell me that he was the leader of the Warriors. No one on this earth. I know he was stepping into Curry's team, but no one can say he was the leader. Let's take it back to OKC. Was he the leader on that team? No. I would argue no. I would argue Russell Westbrook was, because you're not going to tell Russell Westbrook what to do. I just believe that. Russell Westbrook is amazing, but you're not going to tell him what to do. So I really think that KD has always deferred leadership. I don't think he's sought it. I don't think he's really wants it. I just think he loves basketball and he just wants to play the game. So that being said, you have KD, the Durantula, and you have Kyrie, both on the same team. I mean, just look at the list, rewind to what I said, you look at DeAndre, Spencer, Jared Allen, Joe Harris, Chris LeVert, Chandler, Taurean Prince, Garrett Temple, and a few other guys. Who's going to step up? Who is going to be the dog? Who's going to be the leader on this team? I honestly don't know. You got a bunch of non-confrontational, I should rephrase that. You got a bunch of hesitant leaders on this team, hesitant players on this team who are extremely talented, but, when things get tough, you might have that discussion on the bench that's Kyrie and Durant are going to have saying, no, I should take the shot. No, you should take a shot. No, I should take a shot. And if if that happens, I think that the Nets are going to really, really struggle. Kyrie has been leading a movement against social injustice, specifically, with a lot of NBA superstars hopping on board, and they may not even have players to go into the season with, because, I mean, aside from money, how can you make these guys actually play? I mean, they have contracts, but these guys are so rich and teams will still want them even if they break rules in the contract. How are you going to get them to stop doing what they believe in? And should you? And should you is the point. As an NBA owner, you're in a tough spot because you have this, you have what's happening in the world going on, and you want to reflect your values and stand strong on what's happening, but you don't want to lose money. So, for NBA owners, that's a little bit tougher when you're talking about billions of dollars. But, for us, it's a lot easier. So, again, no excuse. They need to do what's right. But, again, it's tough. It's tough. And, guys like Kyrie are really putting pressure on everybody else to make those decisions. And so, again, NBA season totally in flux right now. We have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea if they're actually going to play at Disney World. Which is just a funny thought in and of itself. Overall, Kyrie has a shoulder impingement that had a successful surgery. He should be back. I don't think he'll be back this season for a few reasons, all of which I've stated. I do think he'll be back next season, and I do think KD will also be back next season, because reports on the insider saying that he's had a very successful rehab, and he's doing quite well, including putting up shots and getting his movement back. So he seems optimistic. Everybody seems optimistic. So I think that both those guys are going to return, but not this season. They're going to return next season. I sincerely believe that. They're not going to worry about trying to use them this season. But again, we'll see. Just my opinion. Overall, I rate the Brooklyn Nets potential for 2021 season. I'm not going to talk about this season coming up, or this restart to a season. I think that would be an invalid moot point. Instead, I'm going to rate them on what I think they're going to be for the season of 2021. And I think that Brooklyn Nets as a solid A-. I think as a potential team, they have a solid A-. I think that they are a potential candidate to be in the finals. However, I would rate my reality estimate of the Nets, not my potential estimate, my reality estimate. Do I actually think the Nets will do it, will live up to their potential? I rate them as a B-. I think they're going to be a second round elimination in the 2021-2022 season playoffs. I think, again, you got to look at, a lot of these super teams, they do really, really well during the season. But because it's with this much talent and the caliber athletes you have, and the scorers you have, you could do that well in the season, but what really starts to put pressure on you is actually the playoffs. Obviously, we're talking about playoffs. Yes, we're talking about playoffs. Puts the pressure on you, and if you're not ready, if your team chemistry is not good by the end, then you're going to be like the Warriors, who had a 72 plus win season, and that's all fine and dandy, but they didn't win the chip. It don't matter if you don't win the chip, as Michael Jordan said. And that is just the reality of it, is that you see teams that didn't do as well and aren't considered super teams, but then do well in the playoffs because they got their crap figured out and they know when to turn it on. And I'm just concerned that for the Nets that they won't live up to their potential A- rating for me, because when the playoffs come around, they're going to struggle to figure out who the dogs are on the team. We'll have to see. But again, that's my prediction. Take it or leave it. Doesn't really matter. But moving on. Probably the most important fact of the last month for the NBA, Nikola Jokic, the Joker, has laughed off what looks like to be 15 to 20 pounds off his weight. Go Jokic. That's fantastic. All jokes aside, Jokic has one of my favorite quotes recently. Before I say it, I will be putting a picture up so you can see the beginning of the season of Jokic, and then so if I can figure out where I am on the camera, beginning of the season versus where he got to by slimming down, and it's truly startling. How will this affect his mobility? I think he'll be great. I think Jokic has always been known as a shooting big, a mobile, high IQ passing big, and who can shoot and bang a little bit down low. So because he had some weight, I think that might hurt, but his technique and his quickness, I think that's going to be totally unchanged. And I think he might even be able to get to open shots on the floor faster and not rely so much on post fades, which pretty much made him unstoppable last year. So again, we'll see what happens with Jokic, but again, congrats to you, buddy. That's fantastic. Excited to see what you're going to do with that weight come the season time. Now, favorite quote of the last couple of weeks was from this man, Nikola Jokic, the Joker, who is known for his passing ability, his strangely high IQ as a center. He's just incredible. So he said, passing makes two people happy. Scoring only makes one person happy. And I think that is such a underrated, profound statement. So often it's very clearly a selfish game. You look at guys like James Harden and any of the iso ball people. It's very easy to get caught up in, okay, well, let me just jazz this guy to sleep with my rhythm dribbles, and then all of a sudden pull up for a three, or drive past him and get the contested dunk, or get fouled and go to the line. All of that is extremely selfish, and I think that Jokic's quote really brings back into perspective, hey, I have the opportunity to score, and if I'm open and I should do it. If my team needs me, I should do it. However, I think what Jokic is saying is it's more important as a chemistry for the chemistry of the team to pass it around, and if you have the opportunity to shoot an open shot or guarantee an open assist, an open bucket for your teammate, I think he's saying you should take you should pass it, because that's going to boost the chemistry. That's going to make not only you happy that you threw it to somebody who could score, and it's going to make them happy for scoring it. Two different stats go into two different players instead of one player getting all the points. So I think it's fantastic, and I love that attitude. Absolutely love that attitude. I wish more players had that attitude. But Jokic can also score 40 points a game if he wants to. So, he's still a beast either way. It's just cool to see a big man like him passing. He's just hilarious to watch in interviews. I strongly recommend it. Anyways, thank you guys for listening to the Pistol Pete podcast, the PPP, brought to you by Game On podcast. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to do this. This would not be possible without them. So again, make sure to like, follow, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and if you see the bell icon because you're on YouTube, then go ahead and click that bell and make sure that you know when new content is coming out, because new content is going to be coming out. A lot coming up. So again, thank you guys for joining me for the PPP, and Pistol Pete, have a good one.